And I'm delighted to say that joining me is someone who slam dunks both parts of that brief. It's the wonderful Amy Hoggart. Amy, welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, your debut on Times Radio. And, I thought we could start the 5 stories with the story, the obvious story that set the internet on fire. Because living in the new normal as we are, we couldn't get to the end of the week without a new implosion in the White House. And the latest one is a big one, with Trump and Musk, until recently, the self-styled first buddy and the president, tearing lumps out of each other on their own respective social media sites. Whatever the reason, the messages last night were the tweet equivalent of nuclear bombs going off, possibly mutually assured destruction in Twitter form. A friend asked me last night, Amy, if Trump and Musk are making satire, not mating, but probably not at the moment, but making satire redundant. And I said, I thought Elon's plan had been to make everyone redundant. So maybe this is all one big Doge cut. What's going on?
It's what we've all been waiting for quite a long time. We knew they were going to blow up, these two huge egos. When they joined forces originally, it was sort of like hearing that a show that you really want to watch is going to come out, but you don't know exactly when it's going to be aired. Because I was looking forward to this fighting match for so many months, and finally it's hit, just dropped out of nowhere. Or like an album from your favourite artist that they just suddenly put out. And it's more entertaining than we thought. I mean, they've created so much damage, and they're directly responsible for a lot of children dying, in poor countries. And I cannot overstate how awful his tenure at the White House has been. But this bit is the fun bit that I do think we need to all enjoy and that we really deserve.
We deserve it. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's just. I wonder whether, for most people, the low blow that Musk put out in all those tweets, and whatever they're called these days, was mentioning the Epstein list, and that's certainly caused a huge furore. I mean, if it's we're not going to speculate. It's all unfounded as far as we know. But I think for Trump, the low blow was suggesting that Musk was saying that I won you the presidency, because that seems to have burnt him. Yeah,
most of us. I mean, the worst thing really that you can be is a paedophile. For Trump, though, it's losing really any competition. So I totally agree with you. That's the bit that really stung him. But I think also Musk does accuse people of being paedophile. It's not the first time he's done that.
No, that's right. Yes, is that the diver guy?
Yeah. So I do think he bandies it around a bit. So maybe that didn't, affect Trump as much. But it's been some crazy accusations, and really fun because you're seeing into their minds, like saying that, I guess Trump said that Musk was upset about the EV, like he's going to get less money. And that's he's like, that's why he's walked and stuff. And then that really upsets Musk. And I don't hear from like really egocentric, narcissistic businessmen much. And it's fun. It's entertaining. And you have to remember that Trump is a TV guy. He knows how to get our attention and keep it.
This is it, isn't it? He is of another age, and he's the ultimate politician for this age. And some people saying, look, has he met his match in Musk? I suppose it's when you've got the world's most powerful man and the world's richest man at loggerheads, possibly in a way that the world has literally never seen before. I mean, will one of them win? I mean, or is this going to end in some horrible score draw?
Pick your fighter. The thing is, they've got totally different aims. Like, I think Musk is watching the investors. He's worried about money, right? And Trump's worried about power. So there's different ways that you could decide who's winning. I don't really care because I hate them both so much. And this is so fun. And they didn't calm down in the morning. I know I keep coming back to how much fun this is, but I do think we deserve it. And it's a Friday and it's taking us into the weekend and we can just enjoy it. They're not backing down. They're still at loggerheads. I don't know who's going to win. That's also part of the fun. I'm here with the popcorn and I'm really enjoying myself.
Can I just point out one thing I think is lovely about this story, and it's obviously and I don't want to see people tearing lumps out. Although actually in this case it's quite, as you say, grab the popcorn. But there was this wonderful thing this morning where there was the press was full of this idea that the two of them were going to have a phone call.
Yes.
And make it like we'd all want to do if you'd had a row with your sort of nearest or dearest. And it took Trump to turn around something like 6:45 this morning saying, that's not going to happen. But something like this collective will on the part of all of us that we sort of, then everyone else sort of naturally shies away from this kind of like no holds barred fighting. But these two are, of a different ilk.
They're just going for it. And also he said something really petty, like he's being encouraged to back down. He's saying he won't. And then he says, I barely think about Elon. He just denied. It's such a childish thing. It's like, we know you're thinking about it because you're fighting with him actively. We're reading it in real time. He's like, I never think about that guy. It's that, even that makes me laugh.
It's such a teenage sort of crush thing, isn't it?
Teenage, yeah. And we have to remember that this is, on one side is totally drug fueled. Like, okay,
this is allegedly according to Trump.
There's elements that are more exciting because they're even less predictable, according to the New York Times.
Yes, it's been suggested.
Yes, it's been suggested that there's
some substances.
Yes, and I do think
Coca-Cola, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And well, we know that Trump likes Diet Coke.
Yes.
So maybe he's over-caffeinated.
That could be it. Maybe that's
but
all
listen,
it is.
I'm not saying he is.
One last thing on all this stuff, which is I'm always curious by the role of J.D. Vance in all of this, the vice president, who Musk sort of announced should take over, and obviously that Trump should be impeached.
Yeah.
And yet, while he's normally very quick on the socials, Vance took several hours before he came out with it. And what some people are saying is a sort of equivocal statement. I stand by Trump. Well, of course you do. You're the VP. But would you see is he trying to play the long game because he knows Trump supposedly shouldn't be there in another few years as his second term will come to an end?
Yeah, he's a long-term thinker. He can't join this fight. He has to stay on Trump's side. And Musk is not... He's bowing out of politics, and that's where Vance's future is. He's also probably not a very good fighter. He's like, what would he do? He's the type of person who'd sort of pat you a bit and his hands would fly in the air, and he just wouldn't have any good he's not funny or smart, or I mean the other two aren't either, but Vance is just too weak to fight.
Okay, yeah. Well, this is that time will tell, I guess. Is he keeping his powder dry? I mean, he sort of got that sort of the playground thing again with the way he treated Zelensky. But I think this is definitely. I think the point is this story's got a long, long way to run. But let's move on to a story where we actually can point out to a winner and a loser. Because yesterday there was the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election, which was a case of Labour squeaking home against the odds. I mean, literally, they were as far away as 11-1. With some bookmakers, and they've confounded the odds. But at the same time, pollsters are saying that the SNP, with this kind of vote share, are on course to win the Holyrood elections next year. So, looking at this election, is this a happy time for Labour? Are they, or for which party? How do you sum up the election?
I read it as happy for Labour because they didn't expect it to happen. They did much better than expected, and we're still a long way away from the Holyrood election. So. I mean, I guess I'm swayed by how happy Davy Russell, the Scottish Labour MP is. He just seems so happy, and
it's nice to see, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really nice to see. And I also thought I had this moment when I was reading the coverage this morning because he's a very popular character locally. He's born and bred there. Everyone likes him in the community, and I started thinking, gosh, it's so. It's so partisan at the moment. We talk about party politics so much, but here's a guy who's just voted in because everybody likes him and they trust him to look after the town. But then his speech actually he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, firstly, Labour did really well. Secondly, the SNP did not do well at all. And thirdly, Reform did really badly. So he basically just slammed all the parties and just was really happy. And I was like, actually, we are the media narrative probably is correct here. This is all about parties.
Well, yeah, exactly. As it sort of think, I'm a homespun local guy, but is he really?
No.
That kind of destroys my hope because I'm going to be all naive and lovely and sort of idealistic here because my very good friend Count Binface has a policy connected to this because Davy Russell being born and bred in the seat is lovely. And so the Binface idea is that anyone should have to live in the constituency for 4 years before you're allowed to stand. And I just wonder whether that was brought in or not as a policy, but that Davy Russell might offer a key to all the parties as a way to try and at least secure some kind of local support by going local rather than all this parachuting in that we see all the time.
Where's Binface from? Is he from Earth though?
No, see, this would be ruling himself out of elections, but that's just the kind of selfless space lord he is, you see.
It sounds like he's giving up his seat a little bit, isn't he?
And who wouldn't want to vote for that?
Why 4 years?
Well, it's a rough parliamentary term, It's a decent number. He plucks it out there. Don't think that Binface has thought things through. No. Although I'm not him, so, or am I? Anyway, one last thing on Davy Russell was that in his press conference, I thought was lovely, was he started quoting his favourite song, which apparently is The Answer to Everything by Del Shannon. Now, possibly he chose this simply because the opening line of it is just don't ask me a mountain of questions. Well, I think it's quite neat.
It's a message to the press.
Yes, exactly. He should be a football manager with that kind of thing. What do you think about that? Do you like the idea of MPs having to sing their way in when they arrive?
Definitely. If I was a Scottish MP, I love line dancing. I'm not sure if that's what they call it, but I would have chosen a song you could dance to.
Yes.
Like the Gay Gordon or something like that.
Or something to test their physical and mental skills to see if they pass a certain bar.
Yeah.
Or limbo if they want to literally pass a certain bar.
That would also be a sort of dance move. What's that one? The reel of the 50. It's another Scottish reel, but I think he's missing a bit of a trick.
Yes. Well, this could be the start of something. Well,
yes, if he started a trend, then it is going to make it's real political wonks like you and me who follow by-elections. So I think it would make our lives a little bit more entertaining if this was a policy, and also it would bring more people into politics.
Well, absolutely. Well, if listeners have any thoughts on what the initiation rites should be for any new MP after they've won the election in order to make it into the Commons, do let us know. This is Friday Night with me, John Harvey, on Times Radio, sponsored by Visit Dubai. What's not to love? Start your journey at visitdubai.com. Coming up, I'll be tackling more stories from the week's news with my funny friend, Amy Hoggart.
One of the most distinctive and fearless voices in British journalism, Rod Liddle, is on Times Radio. Listen every Saturday morning from 10 as he tackles the biggest topics of the week and engages with leading voices from politics, culture and beyond.
I want to hold people to account in 2025.
Sharp analysis, intelligent conversation and forthright opinion.
I also want to get under the skin of the movers and shakers in culture, in science, in the arts, in music.
Rod Liddle, tomorrow morning from 10 on Times Radio.
When you're growing a small business, you need someone who understands the ins and outs. And whether you're a tailor or an accountant, you need the tools to succeed. With an HSBC small business banking account, you'll have free accounting tools and access to our business specialists, virtually or in person. Because whatever your small business looks like, we're with you all the way. Search HSBC Small Business Banking Account to get started. Subject to application, eligibility, credit check and T's and C's. Visit hsbc.co.uk for details.
Whoa! Look! Is that Dragonite? Dragon-type Pokemon have arrived. Discover in Happy Meal now. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this Happy Meal. Until 17th of June from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected book or toy. Pokemon range comprises toys only while stocks last.
Listen to Times Radio on your smart speaker. Just say, play Times Radio.
Friday night on Times Radio with Visit Dubai. From high-energy action to Dubai's sun-soaked tranquil beaches. Find your perfect holiday at visitdubai.com.
It's just coming up to 7:20 and you're listening to John Harvey on Times Radio. And I'm halfway through tackling the week's news in the company of my funny friend, Amy Hoggart. The next story I want us to cover, Amy, is connected with the by-election we were just speaking about before the break. And it's sort of what's going on latest with reform, you know, sort of the UK mirror to Elon, maybe, and the MAGA. And Trump, what's going on in the States. Because, I mean, Reform are in an interesting spot. They arguably have had a good week in the polls in that they've come from nowhere to 26% in the by-election. They're certainly happy about that. At the same time, they've rather carelessly lost a chairman in the shape of Zia Youssef, who I think took offence to their new MP Sarah Pochin's question at PMQ. So it's another mixed bag for Reform. What have you made of their week?
It's a slightly less entertaining version of the Trump Musk spat.
Yes, very British.
It's very British. They're going for each other, but it's underhand. It's quite subtle. I think Farage said that it's quite an intense job and that Zia was bowing out. And the implication was obviously that Nigel wasn't. Nigel can handle it. So it is less entertaining. I don't think it's, there's as many substances being flown around. No Diet Cokes there. It's very polite, but it is still fun. You just have to look a little deeper and see the insults. But I think it's the ultimate reform spat because he's upset about a genuinely racist attempt to ban burqas, and that's a fair enough thing to get upset about.
Well, they would say it's not racist. They would say seven countries in Europe have done this. But it's a conflagration even within the party. Is the point? If they can't keep it together. No. Then is this Nigel's fatal flaw that he just sooner or later, because you can't be a one-man party.
No,
you have to have people who may not share all your views, and he's got to try and keep his band or his growing band together for 4 years. Yeah. Is this looking like this is where he could come unstuck?
It does keep happening, and we have to see who's next, don't we? But he would be better probably as a dictator than a figure of a party with lots of members.
Yes, we'll watch this space, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like his early days.
It is. Well, yeah. I mean, I did like
some time.
Yes. Well, I like what you said about the sort of subtlety of the insults compared to the Americans. I saw Farage did an interview on GB News, and he said phrases like he said, "I'm sad," when he sounded like he was angry, and then he said, we're talking about Zia Yusuf, "I'm sad for him."
Right.
Which he really sounded like, "I'm angry with him."
Yes.
It's all, as you say, it's much more sort of under the surface, under the bonnet, isn't it?
Well, he was saying, he's a finance guy and he's good at some things but not other things. And then he tried to suggest that the things that Yusuf isn't good at is interpersonal stuff and being basically a nice person, which I didn't know was Farage's skill either, but apparently he's better at that. So, I anticipate more of these spats coming out in the future. And again, I've got my popcorn.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well,
something to watch.
Well, speaking of people who can't do things very well, that brings us on neatly to Liz Truss.
Yeah.
Because she's been mentioned by the Conservatives voluntarily this week, but only in the case of Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor. Suddenly there seems to be a sort of a gear shift and or sort of actively saying we get it.
Yeah.
We won't do that again. Like sort of whoops, sorry, Governor. To which then Liz Truss popped up, didn't she, and called him a creature of the system, which is sort of strange for a former Prime Minister to say. But what's your take on the Tory psychodrama?
I want to see an illustration of a creature of the system. They sound like something that you'd get in a fantasy novel.
Yeah, something from Stranger Things.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was really funny hearing Mel say that. It struck me as kind of pathetic because the Tories have been grappling with the legacy of Liz Truss since she left, and it's not going away. It's stinging people, and Britain is suffering, and individuals here are suffering so much from what she did to the economy, and he has to address it. But he just did it in a way. It reminded me so much of when the title sequences of the Simpsons.
Yeah.
When Bart has to write on the chalkboard. It sounded exactly like one of those, "I will not stick super glue up my teacher's nostrils." He said, "Never again will the Conservative Party undermine fiscal credibility by making promises we cannot afford." And you can see Bart scribbling there. Yeah. It was just pathetic and it was juvenile. But I think it's a genuine problem for them, and her fighting back is a genuine problem for her because it's all she's ever going to be known for.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it? I mean, how do you solve a problem like Liz? Because she is going to, I suppose they could take a leaf out of Starmer's book, which was to sort of push Corbyn out of the party, which, and obviously you take a lot of his supporters with you when you do that. Is that the Conservative playbook? Do you think at some point, she has sort of fraternised with people who you would say are on the far right, and I think people like Steve Bannon in the US. I think they're looking for some reason potentially to try and sort of kick her into the long grass, and that could solve it to some extent.
But Starmer got rid of Corbyn, and then he also got rid of Corbyn's lot. He purged the whole of the far left, and they can't purge the whole of the far right in the Conservative Party because they're worried about reform. And also, Corbyn is a very different character from Liz Truss. Liz Truss is going to go on the craziest podcast. She's going to go on the most embarrassing conference circuit. She's going to advertise, what was it, like a whiskey that's connected to someone who's been convicted of domestics, something really bad. It was a violent person's whiskey brand.
There was some very esoteric whiskey brand she's been found to endorse.
And so she's always going to be popping up. I have a toy, for my daughter where you pop the little wood. It's very old-fashioned, the wooden thing, and there's a spring and it keeps coming up.
Yes.
That's the problem.
But if they could manufacture those and sell those at Tory conference, maybe they could boost their coffers that way. That could be it. I mean, I've got my own plan, which is I'm going to say it here on Times Radio. Is I want to pitch my new TV format, and you can host it, Amy. It's called 44 Days. Yeah. And in each episode, Liz gets a month and a half to try her hand at a variety of jobs. Each week is a different one. There is a split screen and a lettuce is given the same task. Yeah. And they've got 44 days and see which one comes out better.
It's such a good idea. Do you think she could ever host in for Jeff Norcott?
Ouch.
No, I'm asking.
No one can replace Jeff Norcott, although I'm trying. I am trying. Some people say I'm trying in more than ways than one, but hopefully not on this show. Finally, our last story I want to get you on is, maybe for some people the big news of the week, and indeed the big news of next week. Yeah. Because David Beckham is to be knighted in the King's birthday honours. Arise Sir Bex is today's Sun headline. What do you think about Bex becoming a Knight of the Realm?
I mean, he's been trying for decades, hasn't he? For so long. It was one of those stories where I thought, oh God, didn't that already happen? I think it's fun for Posh Spice to be Lady Spice now. It seems to have been angling for that from the Spice Girls days with her reputation. So that's quite nice. But in general, it just doesn't really interest me, because what's going to happen now? Like,
well, maybe it could be the burgeon, a little bit like Trump and Musk.
Yeah.
Because Beckham and the King have
They've
become
got this
unlikely friends.
Yeah.
That maybe this could be like the sort of the big bang of the most unlikely odd couple that sort of the British hierarchy's ever had.
I think these are men who've got, big careers and they're very famous, but they're not known for... We don't know what is their conversation going to consist of. The papers have been trying really hard to imagine and figure out what they've got in common. And the thing that I keep reading is that we know that King Charles is into nature and the environment.
Yes.
And we also know that Beckham has a big garden and bees. So they keep bringing that back. Yeah.
Apparently Beckham's into beekeeping now. And whether that's real or it's like he's like, I think I could get into the King's good books here, Posh.
With a bit of
bee.
to get my knighthood.
Yeah. Is that I wouldn't want to besmirch Beck. So I'm sure he's interested in, apiarian societies is completely honest.
I didn't even know that word.
I think
I'm going to have to write it down and start using it.
I think that's right. Tell me, listeners, if I got that wrong. I think that's it. Not avian, that's birds. But yeah, let me ask you this. I mean, some would say this is a classic example of where the honours system has got very silly. Maybe less silly than other examples, but can you ever see a world in which we sort of move past this? Or are we destined for a world of Sir Rylan, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg? Oh no, that one's happened. But you know what I mean? Like
everyone's getting a knighthood.
Everyone.
Except for you and me.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really follow it. I don't think we really need it as a system. That's probably something for another day. But I think it makes some people feel very good. And probably it looks like Bex is going to be really happy about this. If I met him, I don't know what I would call him.
I think, well, a lot of people say they do it for their mum. They say, I took the knighthood for my mum.
Yeah.
Because it'd make her happy. I wonder if deep down the other reason he got it is because he did, to be fair to Posh and Bex, they did queue at the Queen, as opposed to Schofield.
Yeah.
It's not Sir Philip Schofield, is it? Possibly for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
But they did put the hours in then.
If you knew that you could get everyone in the country to like you more and it would take you 13 hours, would you do it? Like, everybody respected you more and you got loads of kudos, but it would take 13 hours.
But do you get loo breaks?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I didn't queue. You're going to have to take a little potty with you.
Yes, like my 3-year-old has a whizzer pot.
Yes, well, you've got one already.
Yes, exactly. I'll just take that. Yes, yeah. Exactly. He's 3-year-old size. I'm not sure if that...
Listen, I don't know, and I don't want to imagine how a system works, so...
Well, there we go. Maybe that we have cracked the case of why David Beckham got a knighthood is because he learned how to, keep himself managed in a queue in the middle of London. We've learned something. Amy, it's been brilliant going through the week's news with you. Just before you go, tell us, what are you up to at the moment?
I have a Substack called What's Left.
Yes.
And every week I interview someone interesting about their politics. And I also have a very silly satirical comedy podcast called Femanism, where me and another female comedian play men explaining feminism with our voices lowered.
Ah, okay. That's fantastic. And who's that with?
It's with Samantha Martin, sorry.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Very silly. It's just jokes about two blokes in a shed.
Oh, okay. Well, check both of those out. What's Left and Femanism.
That's right.
And and thank you so much for being my funny friend this week, and indeed all the time.
Yes,
the wonderful,
long term.
Yes, indeed. Amy Hoggart.